A dark red Ducati Panigale V4 sliced through the afternoon traffic on Kingsley Boulevard with the unmistakable sound that made drivers glance into their mirrors before they ever saw the motorcycle. The polished fairings reflected the Georgia sunlight as the bike moved with calm precision, never speeding, never weaving, never breaking a single traffic law. Behind the tinted visor sat a black woman, whose posture projected quiet confidence rather than arrogance. She rode with the kind of discipline that came from years of experience, every movement deliberate, every lane change signaled, every following distance measured. Nothing about her suggested recklessness, yet before she even reached the sheriff's checkpoint, 2 deputies had already decided she was someone who deserved closer attention. Sheriff Raymond Hale stood beside a marked patrol SUV, with his arms folded across his chest, watching hundreds of vehicles pass through the temporary inspection lane. Pickup trucks, family SUVs, delivery vans and commuter sedans rolled by one after another, with barely a second glance. Then the deep growl of the Ducati echoed across the highway. Hale slowly lifted his head, his eyes narrowed there. He said quietly, "Officer Travis Mercer," followed his gaze toward the approaching motorcycle. "What about it?" Hale never took his eyes off the rider. "Expensive motorcycle." Mercer shrugged. So Hale answered with a voice that carried years of authority. "People don't usually ride something like that through Monroe County, for no reason." The Ducati continued toward the checkpoint. At exactly the posted speed limit, the rider's black armored jacket was clean, professional and equipped with reflective safety panels. Her gloves matched the jacket. Her boots rested steadily on the pegs. Even from a distance, everything about her suggested preparation, responsibility and respect for the road. A young deputy standing nearby glanced at the motorcycle and quietly said, "Looks like she's following every rule." Hale ignored the comment instead. He watched the Ducati as though he was searching for something no one else could see. The motorcycle rolled closer. The rider reduced her speed without being instructed, checked both mirrors, and prepared to enter the inspection lane. Like every other driver, Mercer looked back at Hale. "You got a reason to stop her?" Hale waited another second before answering. "I'll find one," those 4 words hung in the warm afternoon air. Mercer hesitated only briefly before jogging toward his patrol vehicle. Several motorists waiting in line noticed the movement. A father filling his pickup with gas across the street paused with the nozzle still in his hand. 2 construction workers leaned against their truck, watching the deputies. An elderly couple waiting to turn onto the boulevard exchanged confused looks. The Ducati continued forward. The woman had no idea every eye at the checkpoint was now following her. She had spent the morning riding through quiet back roads, choosing the scenic route instead of the interstate. Riding had always given her peace. The rhythmic sound of the engine, the open highway, and the freedom of the road reminded her that even after life's hardest losses, there were still moments worth embracing. Every safety habit she practiced honored the person who had first taught her to ride. Years earlier, she believed that respecting the law also meant respecting the people sworn to enforce it. As she approached the deputies, she slightly eased off the throttle and maintained a smooth, predictable pace. Her attention remained fixed on the officers, directing traffic. She expected nothing more than a routine checkpoint. Behind her, Mercer's patrol SUV roared to life. Its engine echoed across the boulevard. A second later, brilliant red and blue emergency lights burst into the afternoon sky, reflecting off nearby storefront windows. In the Ducati's glossy fuel tank, the sharp wail of the siren silenced casual conversations. Along the roadside, without the slightest sign of panic, the rider immediately checked both mirrors, activated her right turn signal, and guided the Ducati safely onto the shoulder, leaving plenty of room for passing traffic. She brought the motorcycle to a smooth stop, switched off. The engine removed both hands from the controls and rested them where they could be clearly seen, calmly waiting for the officers to approach. The sharp growl of the Ducati Panigale V4 echoed across Kingsley Boulevard, cutting through the steady flow of late-morning traffic. Like a warning no one could ignore, sunlight reflected off the deep crimson fairings. As the motorcycle rolled toward the sheriff's checkpoint with controlled precision, drivers nearby instinctively turned their heads. Some admired the expensive machine. Others simply wondered who could ride a superbike that confidently through a police inspection. Deputy Travis Mercer narrowed his eyes. "That's the bike," he muttered. Sheriff Raymond Hale looked up from the clipboard in his hands. "What makes you think so?" Mercer never took his eyes off the motorcycle. Stolen superbikes move through this county all the time. No visible plate from here. Dark visor, black leather gear. Riding too calm, the sheriff watched for another second before giving a firm nod. "Pull her over." Mercer stepped into the lane and raised his hand. The rider immediately eased off the throttle and guided the Ducati smoothly onto the shoulder. Without hesitation, no sudden movement. No attempt to flee. The engine settled into a deep rumble before shutting off completely. Inside nearby vehicles, curious drivers slowed down to watch. The rider removed one gloved hand from the handlebar, but kept both hands clearly visible. "Good morning, officers," she said through the helmet. Her voice was calm, respectful, confident. Nothing about her sounded nervous. Deputy Mercer approached cautiously, while Sheriff Hale circled toward the rear of the motorcycle. "Turn the engine off. It's already off, officer." "Step off the bike without arguing." She slowly swung one leg over the Ducati and stood beside it, keeping every movement deliberate. She understood exactly how roadside encounters could unfold, especially for Black Americans, who had learned that even perfect cooperation did not always guarantee respectful treatment. Mercer studied her riding gear: premium boots, professional-grade armored jacket. Fresh tires, meticulously maintained motorcycle. Everything suggested responsibility rather than recklessness. Still, assumptions were already forming. "Remove your helmet." She unclipped the strap and gently lifted it away. Long dark curls rested neatly against her shoulders. Her expression remained composed, neither fearful nor confrontational. Sheriff Hale paused for a brief moment. She looked nothing like the criminal profile Mercer seemed convinced of, yet experience had also taught him that appearances alone proved nothing. "License and registration. They're inside my jacket pocket." "May I reach for them?" Mercer answered quickly. Slowly, she carefully retrieved a slim leather wallet and handed over both documents. Mercer glanced at the driver's license before folding his arms. "This registration doesn't match what dispatch flagged earlier." "It should," she replied politely. "The motorcycle was legally transferred several months ago. You may want dispatch to verify the updated federal registration database." Her tone carried no arrogance, only certainty. Mercer frowned. "You telling me how to do police work?" "No, officer. I'm simply trying to help avoid a misunderstanding." The sentence somehow irritated him even more. Behind them, several people had begun recording with their phones. Modern America had taught everyone that traffic stops could become national headlines. Within hours, some recorded out of curiosity. Others recorded because they believed accountability mattered. Sheriff Hale quietly radioed dispatch again. The response still came back incomplete. No current confirmation. Mercer folded the documents closed. "So the bike stays here until we figure this out." The woman nodded. "Once I understand your responsibility." There was no raised voice, no accusations, no attempt to embarrass the officers in front of the growing crowd. Instead, she stood patiently beneath the summer sun, hands folded calmly in front of her riding jacket. One elderly woman watching from a nearby pickup whispered to her husband, "She's been more respectful than half the people I've seen stopped." Her husband simply nodded. Deputy Mercer continued inspecting the Ducati. The motorcycle gleamed, like it had just rolled out of a showroom. Nothing appeared damaged, nothing suggested theft. The VIN plate looked untouched. Even so, his suspicion refused to fade. "You say this bike belongs to you?" "Yes." "Can you prove where you bought it?" "I certainly can." She gestured toward a small document sleeve stored beneath the passenger seat. "May I open the compartment?" Mercer opened it himself. Inside were insurance papers, purchase records, maintenance receipts, and neatly organized documents bearing matching identification numbers. Everything appeared authentic. Sheriff Hale quietly reviewed the paperwork. "It all looks legitimate." Mercer wasn't convinced. "Fake paperwork gets printed every day." The woman looked directly at him. "That is true, and that's exactly why careful verification matters." For the first time, Sheriff Hale noticed something unusual. She wasn't trying to win an argument. She wasn't trying to escape scrutiny. She seemed genuinely invested in making sure the officers reached the correct conclusion through proper procedure rather than emotion. That level of patience was uncommon, especially after nearly 15 minutes of questioning. Mercer suddenly stepped closer. "Turn around," she looked at him calmly. "Officer, turn around." and place your hands behind your back until we sort this out." The surrounding conversations instantly fell silent. Cell phones lifted higher. A father standing beside his teenage son quietly shook his head. The woman took one slow breath, without resisting, without raising her voice. Without forgetting her dignity, she slowly placed both hands behind her back as cold steel handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists. The metallic click of the handcuffs echoed louder than the traffic around them for a brief moment. Even Deputy Travis Mercer seemed unsettled by the sound. The woman never resisted. She never pulled away. She simply stood there with her shoulders straight and her chin lifted, protecting something far greater than her pride. Her character. The crowd along Kingsley Boulevard had grown larger. More phones were pointed toward the scene. Some people quietly questioned what they were witnessing, while others assumed the officers had already caught a dangerous criminal. That was the problem with first impressions. They often traveled faster than the truth. Sheriff Raymond Hale stepped a few feet away as his radio suddenly crackled. Sheriff Hale dispatched requesting immediate confirmation. He pressed the radio "Go ahead." There was a brief pause. Then the dispatcher spoke with unusual urgency. "Sheriff, we've completed the secondary verification through the federal database. The motorcycle is legally registered. No theft record." Repeat. "No theft record." Hill looked toward Mercer. Before either officer could respond, dispatch continued. "There's something else." The sheriff's expression changed. "Go ahead. The individual you have detained is the Honorable Judge Naomi Carter, United States federal judge. She's traveling to the federal courthouse for a judicial conference this afternoon. Federal marshals have already confirmed her identity." Everything around the checkpoint seemed to freeze. Mercer's face lost its color. "What did you say? The writer is Federal Judge Naomi Carter." Silence, the same silence that follows. The realization that assumptions have just collided with reality. Sheriff Hale slowly lowered the radio. He looked toward the woman standing patiently in handcuffs. She met his eyes without anger, without satisfaction, without humiliation. Only quiet dignity. Hale immediately walked toward her. "Judge Carter." She nodded politely. "Yes, Sheriff." "I'm removing these immediately." He carefully unlocked the handcuffs. The metal bracelets fell away from her wrists, leaving faint red marks against her skin. Mercer stood speechless. He had prepared himself for arguments, for complaints, for lawsuits. Instead, Judge Carter calmly rubbed her wrists before looking at both officers. "I appreciate that you corrected the mistake as soon as you had verified the facts." Neither deputy knew what to say. Sheriff Hale removed his hat. "Judge Carter, on behalf of this department, I sincerely apologize. We should have verified every available resource before placing you in restraints." She offered a small, understanding smile. "Accountability is never measured by whether mistakes happen." The officers listened carefully. "It is measured by what we choose to do after we recognize them." Those words landed harder than any lecture. Deputy Mercer finally stepped forward. "I owe you an apology." "You do." "I let my assumptions speak louder than my training." Judge Carter nodded gently. "Many good officers make difficult decisions every day. The public depends on them, but every badge also carries the responsibility to slow down when facts are still incomplete." Mercer lowered his head. "I'll remember that for the rest of my career." Around them, the atmosphere had completely changed. Several people who had been recording lowered their phones. An elderly veteran quietly removed his baseball cap. A young black mother standing nearby squeezed her daughter's hand. "Remember this," she whispered softly. "Never let someone else's opinion decide your worth." The little girl looked at Judge Carter with admiration shining in her eyes, not because she was a federal judge, but because she had shown strength without hatred, confidence without arrogance, grace without weakness. One of the deputies carefully returned Judge Carter's helmet. She accepted it with a thankful smile before putting it on. She looked once more at the officers. "I hope today isn't remembered because a judge was handcuffed." Both officers listened. "I hope it's remembered because people were willing to admit a mistake, learn from it, and become better afterward." Sheriff Hale extended his hand. "It will be." She shook it firmly. "No community becomes stronger by pretending errors never happened." She glanced toward Mercer. "It becomes stronger when honesty is greater than pride." Mercer gave a respectful nod. "Thank you, Your Honor." Judge Carter climbed back onto her Ducati Panigale V4. The engine came alive once again with its unmistakable roar. This time no one saw a suspicious rider. They saw a woman whose integrity had spoken louder than her title. As she rode away toward the federal courthouse, the checkpoint became unusually quiet. No one would forget that morning, not because of flashing lights, not because of handcuffs, but because respect, humility, and truth had changed the ending of a story that could have gone very differently. From that day forward, Sheriff Hale ordered additional verification procedures before any violent detention involving uncertain vehicle records. Deputy Mercer became one of the department's strongest advocates for unbiased policing and improved communication during traffic stops. Judge Carter continued serving her country with the same fairness she had shown on that roadside, reminding everyone that justice is not defined by power, race, or profession. It is defined by integrity, patience, and the courage to do what is right, even when emotions run high. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Deputy Mercer deserved forgiveness after admitting his mistake, or should there have been greater consequences? We genuinely love to hear your perspective, because every respectful opinion adds something valuable to the conversation. And before you go, tell us what kind of powerful justice story you'd like to watch next. Should it be another inspiring story about law enforcement, a courtroom drama, a military hero, or an unforgettable act of kindness that changes someone's life forever? Your comment might inspire our very next story. Until then, remember, real strength isn't found in authority alone. It is found in the humility to seek the truth and the courage to treat every person with dignity